Welcome to the Say It Out Loud podcast. I'm your host, Vasavi Kumar. If you're eager to gain clarity, speak with unwavering confidence, and liberate those inner voices, you're in the perfect spot. My mission here is to empower you to break free, find fulfillment, and ignite your passion. You ready? It's time to say it out loud. I've put together a guide of my top 10 tested and proven to work practical strategies and habits to help bright women like you say no, set your boundaries right, live confidently, and build healthy relationships, starting with the relationship you have with yourself. This is a self-paced guide, and I can't wait for you to dig into it so you can start becoming your most confident self, because she's in there waiting for you. Head to the link in my show notes or go to vasavikumar.com/guide and grab it today. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Say It Out Loud podcast with me, your beautiful host, Vasavi Kumar. I am so excited to be here with Ricky Williams, former NFL player, Heisman Trophy winner, astrologer, someone that I have worked with personally, and also CEO of Heisman. I want to start off with a very bold statement. I was thinking about this leading up to today's conversation, and I'm like, what is the best way that I can introduce Ricky without sharing all of his accolades and all of his accomplishments and all the things? And so this is what I want to say. You have helped me become more of myself. I have become closer. I feel like I'm closer to who God wants me to be. I don't have it all figured out. I don't have like the exact image I don't have all that, but I can feel myself becoming closer to myself. And I owe a lot of that to you in this season of my life. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I think what's most valuable to people is like how do you know? Like, what does it feel like when you're becoming more yourself? How do you recognize? How do you recognize that?
The way that I know is that I no longer feel this conflict. I'm not always at odds with myself. And I'm kinder to myself. You have taught me the power of asking myself better questions. Like, stop asking myself why all the time and instead become more present to what's available here. What is available here for me? And the number one thing is that there is nothing wrong with me. I no longer feel that I am some problem that needs to be fixed or something that's broken that needs to be healed, which I attribute a lot of that to our work together, our conversations, and just how you've interacted with me.
A couple of things that come to mind. First, the way I view myself is as a mirror, and I think I was really taken as a kid, like Snow White, mirror, mirror on the wall. And although it was the evil queen's mirror, the mirror always told the truth, right? Even the truth that the queen didn't want to hear. And that's what I pride myself in being a clear mirror, because I have 100% faith and confidence that when people look in a mirror of truth, all they're going to see is beauty. We've been trained to avoid our beauty. And I think it's, what you were saying is, and I've noticed this with people, is most of us, I mean, the way you described the way you were looking at yourself, right? Think about this. The way you described it's because we're looking at ourselves still, even as adults, even when in our 40s, okay, through the eyes of our parents. And if you think about what you described as a problem that had, right? And for most parents, okay, if they're being honest, a big part of raising a child is viewing the child as a problem that needs to be fixed or solved or corrected. Yeah. Yeah. Not as a flower that needs to be tended to. And if we can fix that really, really easily, is if we stop looking at ourselves as something that needs to be fixed or controlled or corrected or kept safe, and started looking at ourselves as something like a flower that needs to be tended to.
So one of the pillars, I would say, to how you have helped me, and first, to anyone's listening, I don't, say you have to do these things. I only share what is working and what has worked for me. That's obvious. Use your own discernment. But the three things that you and I have really worked on and I have implemented in my life, let me say that, is astrology, cannabis, and asking myself better questions and being more curious. So I want to start with the astrology first, because that's how we met. We met because I saw a YouTube interview that you did, and I'm not a football fan, no offense. I have no idea what a running back does. I'm just going to be really honest. But I loved how you interviewed, and I loved how confident and how comfortable you were in your skin. And the first thing that I thought to myself, and what really drew me to want to book a session with you, and for everyone listening, I will put the booking link to have an astrology session with Ricky in the show notes. What I want to say, Ricky, is that like, I really respected, like, oh man, here's this guy who everyone's known him for this one thing. And now he's no longer actively doing that one thing. And now he's talking about this other thing. He's talking about yoga. He's talking about going to India. He's talking about astrology. He's talking about all this woo-woo shit, right? And I'm saying that in quotes because, you know, if you're not into woo-woo stuff, you will think it's woo-woo shit. But you were talking about some really deep, expansive work that you had done. I was very drawn to the fact that you respected the Indian culture so much, and our, you know, just Hinduism and all the things that come along with being from India. And I was so compelled to just book a session with you. And you are by far, and I've said this to everyone that I know, like you're the best astrologer I've ever worked with, and I've worked with many, mostly Indian men, right? So we've used astrology, and you've helped me use my chart as a way to really understand myself. So can you say more about that? Like kind of the misconceptions around astrology and how we can actually use it to help guide us back home to ourselves?
Well, you know, I think in general, what I can speak to is the three things that you mentioned: astrology, cannabis, and questions.
Mm-hmm.
They're all tools.
Mm-hmm.
And to utilize the third tool that you mentioned, questions, right? It's like anything in your life that you really enjoy. Okay, it's as simple as asking a question of how can I use this
Mm-hmm.
to improve the quality of my life. And so I've always been asking that question about anything, everything that comes into my life. I don't care if I like it, if I don't, I don't care. The question I'm asking is how can I use this to improve the quality of my life? And that just gives me information. And so, you know, for me, cannabis, you know, there was and still is to a certain extent a stigma on cannabis. It was something that I got benefit and joy and pleasure from, and so I kept asking the question of how can I use this to improve the quality of my life. And if we're willing to engage with that question, everything in our life can be utilized as a tool. All right. And if we ask that question, sometimes we'll get you can't
Mm-hmm.
can't utilize this to, right, and that's good information to have. But we shouldn't start with the assumption or other people's definition of what is useful to us and what is not useful to us. So for me, that's an integration. And so the same thing, I had an astrological reading, and I was like, I just had, because I'm always asking that question, I noticed right away, wow, this thing could be really useful to me in my life. But everyone has to have their own experience of how can this be useful to me in my life. And for me, you know, because I understand myself, you know, I'm pretty clear that, you know, my role on this earth is to help people feel better. And so I've found the way that I've helped myself feel better is to understand and to love myself. And that's been the greatest thing I can do for myself. And I realize that me doing that for myself, it radiates from me and extends to other people. You know, it's the light that I radiate. And so it feels really good. And that's what I do. And so the message really is, you know, what in your life are you like beating yourself up for? You know, that you would, right? Because we all have those things that we do and then we beat ourselves up after we do it. And we get in this loop of we do it and then we feel bad. We do it and we think that by doing it is wrong, and by feeling bad, it somehow makes it better.
Wow. One
But
thing
it doesn't,
you've, mm-hmm,
but
go
it
ahead.
doesn't work. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so instead of beating yourself up for things that you enjoy doing, asking yourself the question of how can this thing, you know, benefit my life? How can this increase, you know, the joy and the abundance in my life? And if you can find a way it does that, then you got permission to do it. And if you can't, you know, then maybe you need to consider doing something else that does add to the quality of your life. But even if you do that, you don't need to beat yourself up for it. It's just information. And then even to go to another step, if you're willing to be honest with yourself and you realize you're doing something destructive, just realize, okay, like what motivation do I have to not want to be here anymore?
That's a great question.
Just being real.
Yeah.
You know, and then you start to see, oh, maybe I should make some changes in my life, right? And then a lot of people realize, wow, changes I have to make in my life to feel better don't feel worth it. Okay. Then don't be surprised if you get sick. You know?
If I can look at just the intersection for astrology, cannabis, and better questions. When you read my chart, there were things about my chart I already knew, but it was the way that
better questions is a judgment, is questions that are actually questions, is the way I think about it.
Okay, questions that are actually questions. Okay, I love it.
Yeah.
No, we're 86ing to better. Okay, so
Yeah.
they're just questions.
Yeah.
When you read my chart, what I really loved about how you interpreted it was that everything that I thought was wrong with me, right? Oh, I'm too much. I'm such a bitch. I'm so this. Like all the things that I've been hiding and trying to suppress for so long because I thought that it was bad. You helped me see that these are the things that I need to learn to embrace more. So I really loved how you interpreted that rather than have it be something like, for example, Saturn is something that my family, everyone, in my family was like, oh, Vasavi, you've had Saturn for so long. Oh my God, poor thing. Vasavi's had Shani Saturn. I was the poor girl in the family because I was ruled by Saturn. And you say about that, because you're laughing. So what do you have to say about that? Because your interpretation has set me free as far as it relates to my Saturn in my chart.
Yeah. So, this is a unique experience, but I think it sheds a light on how astrology can be beneficial and really the actual astrodynamics or the way astrology works. And so something that I've discovered, and with your help, just in our conversations, is how to look at a chart and determine like what is the strongest planet. So much of astrology is sign based. You meet someone and you say, what is your sign? What is your sign? But what I'm finding is that it's helpful because that's all that people know, but it's so much more helpful to understand. People should be asking, what's your planet? What's your planet? I don't want to get into too many details about the distinction, but I will touch on this. Is basically the planets in astrology are the active dynamic forces. I think of them as the voices in our head. They're what move. Okay. It's not a coincidence that they're named after gods. What I say is, and what do we know about the gods? The gods always get what they want. Okay. The gods always get what they want. And so it's in your life, it's not the signs that dictate behavior. It's the planets. Okay. The signs dictate the how of the behavior, but the actual driving, motivating force of the behavior, what the desires that are trying to be expressed or the needs that are trying to be fulfilled are coming from the planets. Okay. And so these needs, desires, drives, what I'm calling the planets, they exist on the inside, urges that arise in us. Okay. And then the conscious mind has two choices. Either we express the urge or we stuff it. Okay. And if we express it, we got to find a tricky way to express it. And if we don't express it and we push it down, it finds a way to express itself anyway. Okay. And so the training we get about which urges and how to express them comes from the environment. Okay, it comes from the environment. And so when I'm talking to people, the planet Jupiter, okay, it's our religious urges, it's optimism, it's our need to believe in something greater. Okay, and so Jupiter feels good, it's expansive. And so most people, especially if on the spiritual path, right, people that are working on themselves, okay, if you talk to them about what's your strongest planet or what's your strongest urge, most of them are going to say Jupiter. Okay, right, because consciously we're taught to identify to be benevolent people. Okay, we're not taught to be cheap or miserly. Okay, we're taught that that's not us, that's other people. Okay. And the planet of being cheap and miserly, right, is Saturn. Okay, Saturn. The planet of pessimism is Saturn. Okay, the part of us that looks and sees the glass is half empty, that's Saturn. Okay, and so most people, it's not, in astrology we say Saturn is responsible for 1/2 of the pain and difficulty in life. Okay, and so if you're a Saturnian person, who wants to be responsible for half of the discomfort, pain, and difficulty in life?
Torture.
Okay? Right? It's torture, right? But the other side of Saturn, okay, Saturn rules things like medical school or law school, okay, or getting a master's degree, okay, or a PhD, okay, right? It's because Saturn is a part of us that stays committed and determined to stick with something, long enough for it to become like real, tangible in the real world, And the real purpose of Saturn is the ability of two things. One is the ability to take our ideas, right, whether they're spiritual ideas, mental ideas, emotional ideas, and the work and the knowledge it takes to make those things real in the physical plane. Okay. And that takes time and effort and determination. Okay. The real gift of Saturn is order and structure. No, if someone was really truly appreciating Saturnian person, okay, here's one of the ways they would utilize it. Okay. The way that I'm trying to utilize you, okay, because I have a lot of great ideas and a lot of these things moving, but I need help like creating some order and structure to actually make them real. Otherwise they just spin in my head and they die with me. Okay. If I can't find some Saturnian help in my life and in my chart, okay, Saturn is in the 11th house. The 11th house is the house of friends. Okay. Right. You and I have become fast friends, right? I'm someone, right, who needs Saturnian friends. So I've learned that my Venus is in a trine aspect to Saturn. So I have this natural love for Saturnian people, right? Thank God, right? As a Gemini, with the Cancer moon, I need help, keeping things structured. Okay. Because I live in my head and in my emotions. Okay. That's great. But if I'm trying to build a business or do something in the physical world, to take these ideas and these intuitions that I'm receiving and making them real in the world, I need help. My chart says, what kind of help do I need? Saturnian help, right? And so when we appreciate Saturn, if I had to purchase something, I'm gonna say, damn, I'm gonna call Voss because she's gonna know how to get a good deal on this, right? Right.
Because I'm cheap, miserly.
Exactly. And the fact that you can laugh, like, this is beautiful, right? And the real truth of Saturn is about forethought. Okay. Right? The ability to look into the future and understand, how is the behavior I'm taking right now going to affect the future? Right? And if we don't have that kind of forethought, we're not going to be able to make our dreams come true. And ultimately, the deepest urge of Saturn's job is to keep us alive. Okay. So Saturn has to see how the choices we make today are going to affect the future.
Let's take a quick break.
Having been in therapy since the age of 12, I know firsthand just how powerful the process of finding the right therapist is. Going to therapy and talking things out with my therapist has made me happier, clearer, and most importantly, I have a plan for my mental health. I have tools to be able to communicate with others, and also the tools to cope when life gets hard, which it does. So let me ask you a question. Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human who lives in this world who is going through a hard time, therapy can give you tools to approach your life in a very different way. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with the therapist. There's a link in my description. It's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Vasavi. That's BetterHelp.com/Vasavi. Clicking that link helps support this podcast, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with the therapist and see if it helps you. And because finding a therapist is a little like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing out about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. I don't know where I would be without the help of therapy and my therapist, but I do know that life would feel that much harder. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Vasavi. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this podcast. So, first of all, thank you so much for that. I feel like I just got even more information about myself. But what I want everyone listening to really take away from this, whether you're into astrology or not, whether you're a man or a woman, and I know a lot of men, come to you to get astrology readings, which I think is beautiful. And I actually want to shift into that because I do have quite a few male listeners of the podcast as well. And I don't want to ever neglect y'all. What I want to say to everyone listening is, like, if you've been curious about just going deeper into who am I, why am I here, what is my purpose, why do I keep bumping up these same, against these same obstacles, as Ricky and I both said in the very beginning, astrology is just a tool, right? So if you're at that point where you're like, man, I just I just need a little different perspective. I just, want to see myself differently, then I would highly recommend going to the show notes, booking an astrology session with Ricky. Just remember, astrology is a tool. It's just one aspect that you can use to understand yourself better. And I love Ricky. And this is the final thing I want to say about astrology is just, you really having reverence for astrology, where it's come from, the roots, and also you being a man of greatness. And I absolutely love that you can take such ancient wisdom coupled with your own personal experience, skills, wisdom. I mean, you have gone to the top of where you could have gone in your career, and you're able to combine that and really help guide others. I wouldn't want anyone else reading my chart other than you, to be
Well,
honest.
like, well said. I mean, obviously, it's like it's feels great to have someone say, kind words, but really, I want to point out, like, you're such a perceptive person, because you really just described my journey. Is that I got to the point in the NFL where, you know, when I was in when I was in high school, I grew up in San Diego. When I was in high school, I led San Diego in rushing touchdowns, like for 2 years. And then I went to college, and not only did I lead the NCAA in rushing and scoring for 2 years, but I became the all-time leading rusher in college football history. And then I went to the next level, the NFL, and eventually became, NFL's leading rusher. Uh, and so I got to the place where I had achieved all my material goals, and there was still this huge emptiness, and almost there was more emptiness because there was an expectation that achieving these things would, like, mean something.
Feel better. Yeah.
It would mean something more than just the but even more that it would produce a type of esteem that I could be proud of. Meaning, I thought if I perform and show people that I can be successful, that they will listen to me. They will listen to what I have to say. But I realized, no, they just put me in a box of, I'm an athlete, so kind of shut up and run the ball. And I woke up one day and I was like, this isn't what I'm looking for. And I started to, like, ask questions and to really start to search for, okay, this isn't it, so where might it be? And the insight that came to me, like, really quickly, was that everything we do, whether it's going to the movies or watching sports or listening to music or having sex or having kids, all of these things, they just felt so superficial, like we're all in a sitcom. And I had this insight that there must be, like, a deeper place where all of these things come from. Yeah. And this is the power of curiosity, and I mean the power of questions. Because just me having that question and that curiosity, I started to be, like, magnetized towards finding the solution. And so 6 months later, I found myself at the bottom of, like, a 4,000-year-old temple in India. Okay. I'm at the bottom of the temple, and there's music and there's theater, and I'm in a worshipful mood. And I had this insight of, oh, okay, this is where it all comes from. This feeling of all these things that we're doing, there's an ancient core in us, and that something about what was captured on paper in India, I mean, the Vedas and the Upanishads,
Mm-hmm.
there, you know, I just found myself, I had no idea, and I didn't understand what I was reading, but I found myself drawn to, like, consuming this ancient wisdom that was left. And I started studying Ayurveda and, like, all of these, like, really diving deep into, and it's not just Hinduism, but it's yoga, right? And what I discovered is all the things that I was reading and learning about in yoga was pretty much the essence of the same things that I was learning as a kid growing up in the church, and realizing that I had found the roots of music and all these other things, but also the roots of religion. And I felt like I was home. And so I was just reading and studying, and anyone that was willing to show me something. And my teacher, we went on a yatra, she took me around India. And so I was actually having these experiences, and it was like they were waking up something ancient inside of me. And I felt so fortunate to have learned astrology in that culture, because astrologers are venerated. In India, you say you're an astrologer, like, people literally will get down and kiss your feet, And so in America, you tell them you're an astrologer and they roll their eyes and they, whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
I was very fortunate to learn in that rich tradition, and then be able to come back and over time integrate my past experiences, my current experiences, and really, making that ancient knowledge, like bringing it into the present moment and seeing what parts of this ancient knowledge actually works today. And some of it works brilliantly, okay, and some of it doesn't. And so just that process of kind of purifying, the gold from the past. And now I'm in a position where I have things that I can offer and share, that where I've basically like a step down energy transformer, that I've consumed all of this ancient knowledge and I've kind of broken it down, and I found a way to make it useful to individuals by showing them how this ancient knowledge applies directly to their life and their journey and their paths.
Well, what I feel when I'm with you and what I hope people will get to experience, because you talked about like you felt at home, like it's, and I will say this, having been raised in a Hindu Brahmin household and doing all the temple tours. I mean, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, every year my mom would drag. And I was so ungrateful. I was like, I want to just be, back on Long Island for the summer with my friends. I don't want to be drinking milk and waiting in lines to see darshan, like before they remove the cloth to see the idol. And I'm like, diarrhea, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want this. I just want to be regular. I am so grateful that my mom took us every year to those temples, because whenever I've had a difficult time, I have this like just this place inside of me that no matter what happens, I can anchor back into some form of devotion, like devotion to myself, to something bigger. And I honestly attribute that to how much she instilled in us, like making us go to India in scorching ass heat, going to these temples. And she's like, no, you're gonna go, so my point is, you feel like home. And I think that happens when, you've accomplished so much, but even if you hadn't, I wonder, anyone who's in this inquiry, right? You don't need to be a former NFL player to ask yourself, who am I, right? Yeah. But you happen to have kind of the best of both worlds. You've accomplished so much, so like, oh, I can set goals and I can accomplish them. But then you also felt that something was missing, so you went on a search to really find who that is, right? And who can you become?
It was training. Yeah. All the
Yeah.
football stuff, like what you're saying, the ability to accomplish goals was showing me that I could accomplish goals. And then once I like, the universe was like, okay, he got that one. He's done a pretty good job actually accomplishing those goals, right? And then the universe said, he's done those earthly goals. Maybe we should give him some spiritual goals, because he showed us that he can accomplish what he sets his mind out to. So let's give him some spiritual goals. And I think that's why I was given astrology, is because I'm someone, because even my past history with cannabis, I proved that I could not care what people think and still trust my heart. And I think as I did that, I was given more, because cannabis is one thing, but astrology is a whole nother thing. It's a whole deeper stigma. And the fact that I learned not to care what people think coming out about cannabis has made it easier for me to come out and not care what people think about astrology. Because to me, again, I talk to guys every day, and most of the guys, they say, I have no idea about what this is. And I've always thought it was crazy, but after hearing you talk, some things you said made sense in ways I can't understand. And I just felt compelled to come have a conversation with you. And I think I feel like, you see it in the movies. You see it in all the movies where like the angel or the alien, whatever, comes down to earth, okay? Mm-hmm. And they don't know that they're an angel or an alien until they get to a certain age, and then they're reminded, and then they wake up and they do what they're supposed to do. I feel like that's what's happening. And if we look at what's going on in the world right now, it makes sense that maybe it's time, it's necessary for that to happen. And I'm fortunate enough, because the people that are attracted to book time with me are the people that are ready to wake up, because I'm clear that my purpose in the world is to wake people up. So I know if people come, I feel permission to give them permission to like wake up and stop pretending. Okay, it's time the world needs you. It's time to stop hating yourself, right? Because if you're hating yourself, how can you offer what you have to offer to the world? And that's what was like so intriguing about your chart, is I just, I look at a chart and I can't help but see potential. And so as the mirror of someone's potential and reflecting that back to people, it offers people the opportunity to step up to that. But most people in the world, they see what you can't do, okay? Right? They see what you can't do, right? But for me, that has what someone can't do has zero value to me, right? The potential that someone has to offer to the world, you know. I
Mhm.
feel we need everyone's potential right now, and
Mhm.
anything I can do to help unlock that and bring it out, like that's what I'm here to do.
Well, one area, and I want to talk about you feeling like home, because I will say this as a woman who, I consider myself to be strong, confident, all those things. But when it comes to men, I kind of don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know anything. And I always think about this one thing you texted me. You were like, you don't seem to understand men at all. I remember you texted me that. I'm like, what is he talking about? What do you mean I don't understand men? I get men. But so I want to pivot into this section of the conversation, because when I first booked a reading with you, I was like, yeah, we're going to talk about my career. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about success. Yes. And I'm like, I felt so deflated. I'm not going to lie. I never told you this. When you looked at my chart, you like brought up partnerships and relationships. I'm like, why the fuck are we talking about love? Can we just get down to like the bottom line? Am I going to be rich? Am I going to be famous? What's happening? And I'm like, God damn it. Why do we have to talk about partnerships? You used to use the word partnership, Ricky, and I used to cringe. The idea of the partnership made me I felt like I was suffocating. Stop laughing. It's true. I'm glad you find this funny. But the idea of partnering with someone was like, I can't breathe. Like I felt like I can't breathe. So really why I think I'm so grateful to you is because I no longer feel that way. I'm not scared of men. I mean, I haven't talked to you in like a month, so a lot has happened. So we need to talk offline, but I'm not as afraid and I don't hate men as much. And I think the reason why I've always felt so at home talking to you, an
Are you
alpha
getting
male.
laid more?
Oh no, nothing. Like,
Okay.
no,
All right.
I have not gotten laid. I'm not gotten
But
laid.
you're,
I don't.
but this. I mean, if you don't mind being personal, but this is part of it, right? This is beautiful for men and women to receive from each other without it having to involve sex, right? Because to me, sex shouldn't be the basis of the relationship. It should be the cherry on the top that allows the relationship to go deeper and deeper. But if there's not some basis of just an appreciation of what the opposite genitalia can offer to us, okay, then even if all we can receive from the opposite genitalia is some time in each other's bodies, you know, that's great and all, but if that's it, you know, I mean, if when we were animals that worked, you know, but we're hopefully we like to think that we're more evolved in that.
I do feel working with you and talking to you every day about my shit, not just about my shit. Actually, I don't want to make it seem like that. I didn't have to talk to you about my shit. I was just in my shit. So every word coming out of my mouth was just pure shit. Everything that I said was a defense, an argument, an excuse, constantly just trying, like, instead of just being like, let me shut the fuck up and just listen to what this man has to say and stop trying to argue with him all the time. That's really been helpful. So thank you.
But patient. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious. I
Yeah.
would like you to present on what a safety or a social safety opposition compound is. Can you tell that story? So social safety opposition compound.
So
Social safety separation compound.
So I have this thing in my chart that it's called a social safety separation compound. So basically how it shows up in my life is like, I really want to feel safe with others. I need safety. I need to feel secure. But instead of connecting with other people to feel that and to nurture that, I separate myself from people. So it's kind of like it makes no sense, right? Like, oh, I want love, I want intimacy, but I want it at a distance. I've always just kept people at arm's length, even in marriages and relationships. But basically, I'm a walking contradiction, right? I'm a walking.
Well, but if we can understand like what a chart is and what it represents, we can understand what this is and how it's been helpful to you. You know, so in people that know a little bit of astrology, there's something called aspects, and what aspects are angular relationships between planets. Okay, and what we're talking about in Vasavi's chart is she has Venus, which is the planet of love, connection, relationship, what feels good, pleasure. Okay, so it's everything that has to do with feeling good. Okay, is in an opposition aspect, so opposes her need to feel safe. Okay, and so there's this compound, or what the psychologists would call a complex, but this pattern of whenever there's pleasure, there comes up this feeling of this isn't safe, right? There's pleasure. This isn't safe. And so it's the thing, whenever she feels good, there's a program that says, okay, this isn't safe. I have to create space. And so, and Venus rules relationships, so it'll tend to attract disappointment in relationships. Okay. And in planet Saturn to work, and this is the strongest urge, right? So it's saying in this chart, the urge for safety is the strongest urge in your life. So that urge for connection doesn't really have a chance on its own. Okay. Right.
It is DOA, dead on arrival.
Yes. But until we can recognize these patterns in ourselves and then change them, right? And so like and this is the beauty of aspects, right? Is because when we can talk about it, right? Whenever it would come up in the conversation, I would point out, what is this, right? Or is this the social safety compound? So you can recognize that complex when it rises up in your consciousness, and instead of just listening to it and doing what it says, right? You can look at it and you can say, okay, right, how can I consciously make choices in this relationship that's actually going to help me feel safe? Okay. And I talked about Saturn, right? Forethought, the ability to see, okay, to just take time. If I choose to go out with this person, what is the end result going to be? To give yourself permission to like do that, right? And I think you've done that with me, right? And what I've noticed, because I see this in your chart, is that I need to be patient. Because most people, right, when you would give me so much shit, right? But I didn't respond to it because I didn't think it was, I knew it wasn't you, it was this compound. And if I could make you aware of the compound, then you could actually show up, right? But if we're not aware of these things, they take over, and we just listen to them, and they again, the gods get their way, okay, right? So the ability to be aware of it, you can say, okay, like in the past, safety and relationship has created separation. How can I make these things come together in a way that actually feels good to me? And I realized what I could do to facilitate that was just be patient, just to be patient with you, and to like honor your need for safety and not freak out and be like, why don't you trust me? I've showed you all these times, like just to not take it personally and be like, okay, she just needs time.
So I want to say this. My mantra in life has always been, I love you. Don't leave me. Wait, get out. Wait, but come back. Like fucking borderline shit, like borderline personality all the way. Like I jokingly say that, but I'm definitely, my belief is people will leave me when they find out how goddamn crazy I am. That is my belief. People, and that is what I've seen growing up. That's how I saw my parents relate to me.
But that's the only people you'll attract with that belief,
but
right?
And what I'm saying, why our work was so beautiful for me is that in my mind, I'm like, Ricky doesn't give a shit about me. I'm just going to I'm going to be my shitty self with him. Right. And I say that I'm not judging myself, but like, just pushing back and I was at some point.
You're really good at it. So seriously, I think you should just be being paid. Like it's a tool, right? How can I get paid? How can I get paid to be a bitch?
Oh, there are plenty of men out there who would pay me to dominate them. But my point is, what I appreciate about you, and I think the reason why I now feel like I'm getting to a place where it's safer for me to be with others and I don't have to separate, is because you never left. You never left. I have more trust and faith in I don't want to use the word loyalty. It's not loyalty. I have more trust and faith in your consistency and stability that you're not going to just leave if I say something, or if I've screamed, you've seen me scream, you've seen me wail, and you've never once left. So you've now helped heal that part of myself that thinks I'm too much for men. Yeah. And that for me is beautiful, because if you don't leave, and like you just signify, right, you are an embodiment of someone who is going to be and stay no matter what, then if
penis.
I have ever,
that too.
If I have
the embodiment of a penis.
No, that's not what I said. Get your head out of the gutter. What I was saying is, I can see.
I meant a man. You get your head out of the gutter. I just meant a man. Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh. So I'm like, so it makes me. I'm about to shed a tear. Can I fucking emote? Hold on. I was gonna say, the fact that you haven't left, and like I've been in my shit. Like you are the best coach in a way for me, because I want to just keep pushing you and resist and be a brat. And you're like, you're patient. You don't make me feel shitty about myself. I already feel shitty about myself, right? You can't make me feel any shittier. So you've helped transform for me that like, there's something wrong with me because you haven't left. Does that make sense? It does.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, yeah. But to me, that was like, it reminds me. So I did a reality show a couple I'm a healer. Like that's what I'm here to do. So I did a reality show a couple of years ago, Celebrity Big Brother. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the dynamic of the show, where I was in the room with Tamar Braxton, and it was obvious that Tamar had been wounded by men in relationships, you know, because she was like, her and I, like we were going at each other in the beginning, you know. And the dynamic turned out where I realized that I'm in this opportunity. I have this opportunity, opportunity to win $250,000, whatever. But I have this opportunity to help this person, like, at least heal some of her wounds with men. And so it ended up coming down where I had an opportunity to choose Tamar. I was playing the game, right? In the game, Big Brother, you're supposed to lie and trick and make sure, make people think you're on your team. And so it was me, and I had like two women. It was me and I had two women, and we were all a team, and one of us was going to win probably and have to pick the other. So one of them was going to be left out. And so I was like, damn, I'm always in this situation between two women and I got to choose one, And so, but it was practice for me, because I was like, it's just a game, right? So I can play it. And so I went to both, and I've never done this in real life, but I went to both and I was honest to both, and I said, let's find a way to like work this out. Okay, well, let's find a way to work this out. And Lolo, she was nervous. She didn't want to deal, and Tamar did. And so Tamar and I had a deal. Okay, and so it got to the end, and I won, and I got to choose the person I go up against. Okay, and I could have chosen Dina Lohan, and I would have won the game. No, right? But also Tamar would have been like, that motherfucker. Like, I knew men, And for me, it was more important to not wound this person further and to create a healing opportunity for her than it was for me to win the game. And that's me, and those are my values, and that's what's important to me. And I feel like my life is not about me; it's about what I can do to help the world heal and feel better. And I'm fortunate enough. I want to say I'm fortunate enough to have a wife who understands that and is not overly threatened by it, and is supportive of me having intimate relationships with other women, because she appreciates the power of that healing process. And the truth is, people that have been wounded by men, okay, my sense is it takes a man to heal that.
I want to say this to any woman listening, is that I'm wounded. I'm wounded. I have felt.
We all are.
We all wounded. And you've helped me. You've really helped me heal that wound in a way. And I, it's funny because I always thought that healing for me, like healing that man wound that I have, would like show up in a very kind of coddly, syrupy, like, oh baby, like, just kind of, I always thought it took a romantic, and I know exactly what I'm trying to say. I always thought it would take a romantic relationship for me to heal my wound with men. I did not think it would come in the form of my conversations that I have with you. There's no romance here. I mean, yes, you're a man, I'm a woman, whatever, but there's no romance here.
I don't want to, that's not fair. I mean, that's not fair. It's not fair to say there's no romance. It's not a sexual, right, like the way most people think that we need to penetrate each other, but there is a dynamic. And sexual means is the recognition of someone has something that I value, I have something that they value. Let's allow there to be some kind of exchange here. That's sex.
Okay, let me be more honest. Okay, yeah. I want to be more honest then. All right, let me be more honest. So you said something to me once. You said sexual energy is what we need to create. And you said a few months ago. I had all these weird feelings for you when I first met you, just to be completely honest. And if you want me to edit this out, I will. But I had all these feelings for you. They were very like, I was woken up when I met you. I had never been talked to in a way by a man. I never had a man say to me, you're smart, you're intelligent. I like that about you. I have never had a man say that to me. Even my father still always refers to me as beautiful. He's never really called me smart though. My father never really calls me smart. He thinks I'm beautiful. He thinks I'm charming. So I had a man finally tell me, and it was you, which was quite the honor. And I was like, man, this guy, and like, I was very drawn to that. It was the first time a man had really seen me for me. And so, yeah, there was that energy. There definitely was that, but I realized, and you helped me see this, like penetration is not the only way to, it's not the end all be all.
Well, I found with you use penetration to destroy relationships, right?
Fuck me and I'll kill you.
Yeah, once they penetrated, you have permission to cut their throat. And so I was like, I'm not going.
Wait, what? No, I'm just kidding. It's been a minute. No, I'm just joking. No, but it's so true though. So you've helped me. You help. Wait, what does that mean for me? Okay, so anyway, what I want to say.
But again, though, this
Mhm.
is part of the healing, that we can have real conversations like this. And so many women have been taught that their only true value, especially to men, is their attractiveness and their openness to be penetrated.
Mhm.
You know, and if you're a free person and you enjoy sex, like there's a resonance, right? There's a resonance between you and men. And that's the other thing. Like you have a very powerful Mars. Okay. You have this very powerful sexual, like when I say sexual, again, it's this need to be creative and it's this need to express passion. This need, and you're a Taurus, a very sensual person. And so one avenue, and it's a very effective avenue of moving that energy, is sex. But if it's when it combines with the social safety separation compound, okay, it becomes complicated because like the physical need to move and express energy is there, but this mistrust of feeling good is also there. And so until more consciousness can be brought to these things and they can be consciously integrated, and again, like you're a special person, and so partnership is something that should be a slow process to make sure that you're finding someone who is actually your equal, because partnership doesn't work unless we find our equal. And if we don't love ourselves, it means we underestimate ourselves, and it means the people that we attract are going to actually be beneath us, right? So we have to love ourselves so that we have the ability to attract and recognize our equal, so that we can actually make a partnership work. I mean,
Well,
I've nothing against the guys that you've been with. They're all really nice, good guys, but intellectually, like they didn't have a shot to be at your level. And so I'm sure it didn't feel good with this powerful, you know, attractive, dynamic person always making them feel like they're stupid.
you didn't have to say it like that.
I mean, I'm telling on myself, you know.
So anyway, no, and another thing that this is helping me in my acting. One thing, whenever I feel a feeling that I'm like, oh, this is uncomfortable, even with like sexual energy between us, I didn't know what to do with that. I just knew I was woken up. I'm feeling all my feelings. I'm like taking bubble baths. Who am I? Why am I in this tub? I'm doing all this shit that I have, like wearing silk robes. And I'm like, who have I become? I like this. But you've really taught me how to take that energy. And it doesn't always have to be in the way that we think we have to channel it, but you've helped me transform it and channel it into
it's yours. It's yours. And I think women are trained to think that energy is for the guy.
Yeah, no,
but guys, we're just going to waste it. We're not going to appreciate it. And if women can realize that energy that you guys have the ability to, don't waste it on the men. Use it on yourselves and attract the kind of men that will appreciate it and add to it. Okay. And I think we need to have this reframing of again, I think one of the things I loved about being in India was there was a place where I was given permission to worship. I'm not getting emotional. I was given permission to worship the goddess. And I remember sitting in the meditation temple, and there was this large image on the wall of Kali. And growing up in America, and I never heard like a Kali, but every day I was in there, like every couple of minutes, I just found myself like glancing. And I was there for 6 weeks, and I developed this really powerful relationship to this powerful, dynamic, feminine energy. And it helped me understand being raised by my mom, okay? And Aries with Mars on the ascendant, okay? I was raised by Kali, right? Someone who embodied that energy. And that, traumatized, but through this relationship, I started to worship that experience. And it helped me heal a lot of the stuff with my mom, and to be grateful that she put that in me, that I have Kali in me, and I think, and the other thing about the Big Brother house, okay, I noticed, not picking on white guys, but mate, there were white guys in there. And when the Kali came out of the women, those white guys couldn't handle it.
They ran. They're like, wait, emotion?
It was like, and for me, I was like, yeah, right. I was like, yeah. And that's why I made it to the end, because the women didn't feel like they felt seen and appreciated. And and like, we need that in the world right now, because look at the guys. Look what's going on in the world. The guys are fucking it up. We need you guys. We need you, women. We need you so bad.
No, but it's very powerful, especially for strong women who have been wounded and who've been let down and overworked, to be seen by a man who is beautifully integrated. I've actually said this to you before, both the masculine and feminine, and you are so beautifully integrated, which is why, like, when I'm with you, and when I know I'm about to talk to you, it's funny what happens. I like don't want to show up with just all my stories and all the shit. It's like I want to be better when I'm around you. And oh, that's what it is. I've never been with a man or had interaction with a man where I want to be better. I'm always just like, oh, I could just get by because he ain't shit. Right. But with you, whenever anytime I know I'm going to talk to you or whatever, I want to show up better. And I have never had that experience, even with my own father. I always knew how to show up, little girl, very happy with my father, make him love me. But I never really thought, how can I show up and be more of myself? So you make me want to be better when I'm around you, which helps me as I venture into dating. We'll see how that goes. Asking myself when I'm around a man, how do I feel when I'm around him? Do I want to be better? And yeah, actually,
But I would suggest, like, when you're around a guy, like, give him that information. I want a relationship, and I want to be around someone that makes me want to be better. Like because guys, I'm telling you, we just don't know. And once you know what you want and how you want to be loved, it's your responsibility to give that information to the guy and give him an opportunity to say, "Oh, yes, I'm in," or to say, and even he might say, "Yes, I'm in," but if you give it to him, you can read the body language, right? You can feel if his body perks up and he's like, yes, or if he slumps and he's like, oh, but he says yes, right? You can see that, right? Yeah. So the ability to put it, and I want to say, I have to thank my wife for this, because she's the first place where I was able to connect a partnership with someone making me want to be a better person. And so when we started hanging out and we started dating, I just noticed I grew up, and it was just being around her and what she represented just made me want to step up and be a better person. And I realized I think this is the magic ingredient, the special ingredient to making a relationship work, is because the truth is we're all growing and evolving. And if we're not growing and evolving together, we're going to grow and evolve apart. And being in a relationship where each person, inspires the other one to be better, right? It creates this place where you're building something together and you're growing together.
What do you want to say to the people listening who are maybe not actively dating? They're not in a relationship. They're single right now. Basically, I'm asking for a friend, AKA me. What do you want to say to people who maybe not in a relationship, maybe they're not looking to date, or they're open, right? And right now they're like, well, Ricky, I don't really have anyone to practice with. What do I do? Who do I practice?
The only person that you ever should be practicing with is yourself, because the aim is, here's what I think the aim should be. When I meet someone, I want to feel confident that I can show them how to love me. But the only way to feel confident in showing someone how to love you is you have to learn to love yourself. And then once you learn the steps, then you let people know. And then if you let them know, you'll see who's qualified and who's not qualified for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. So I think it really boils down to, these three questions. Well, few questions that I've kind of cultivated. We have a whole list of questions. Remember, I made a whole list of questions to ask. How can I use this? Right? How can I use this? If we look at every single thing in our life that happens and asking ourselves, how can I use this? Another one of your questions that I love is, how does it get any better than this? Is that right? Can you say a little bit more about that? Because I think people going through shit, and they're like, wait, how can I ask myself, how can it get any better than if I'm going through shit right now? Or maybe things are good, I'm content. How are these questions useful? So let's just talk about the one, because I didn't like this question, but now I've grown to appreciate it. How can it get any better than this? Tell me your thoughts on why we should ask ourselves that question.
Yeah. So the basic idea, and this comes from the Bible, but pretty much all spiritual texts, is ask and ye shall receive. Mm-hmm. But most people think of it as ask for money. Okay. And it's true. If you ask for money, the universe will make attempts to bring it to you. But most people ask for money, and then they doubt. And doubt means asking for the doubt to be fulfilled. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the idea is whatever we is the realization is whatever we ask for, consciously or unconsciously, is what shows up. Okay. So, typically our pattern, our habitual pattern of thinking is if something good happens, we're like, great. And then the kind of energy stops. We made it. Okay. The energy stops. Okay. We stop asking. We got what we wanted. Energy stops. Okay. Something bad happens. Okay. We put our head down. Oh, this sucks. The energy stops. Okay. The question of how to, the question is, how does it get any better than this? Okay. And when I first started using this tool, it wasn't a question. It was just something that I was saying. But I kept using it until it actually became a question, until I actually became curious about how do things get any better than this. Okay. Right. And it's asking for information, right? Asking for what can I do? What can I be? How can I show up? How can I look at things that would allow things to keep moving? Okay. Would allow things, and it doesn't matter because we stop the energy when things are bad. We stop the energy when things go well. So the question works in both places. It keeps the energy moving, right? So many people don't realize, and it happened to me, is that we tend to make our greatest successes, we tend to create them as a ceiling. Okay. Right. We tend to think, it's not going to get any better than this, right? And as soon as we feel that, we create a ceiling. But the question of how does it is we keep raising the ceiling and we keep pushing ourselves to keep growing and to keep moving and to keep the energy moving. Okay. To keep the energy moving, to keep inviting possibilities, to keep inviting things to be different.
Okay. So now that I feel like everyone listening probably has a pretty good idea of how they can reach out to you and how they can book an astrology session with you. You already have my hashtag Vasavi approved seal of approval. And I say that because I don't just bring anyone on here. I don't toot anyone's horn unless I've actually experienced them firsthand. And I can say this, having been in contact with you consistently for almost 4 or 5 months now. It's been amazing. I think if anyone can walk away just kind of looking even at you and I and our interaction, this is what our conversations are like. Sometimes they're a little bit more intense. I think I'm behaving well on this podcast, but I can be very, very aggressive with you sometimes. And I know that because I need to get it out. I need to say it out loud, and I need someone who's not going to be afraid of my aggressiveness. So you hold my aggressiveness so beautifully, and I don't feel aggressive anymore. I'm like, this is my passion. I don't judge my aggressiveness like I used to. So speaking of saying it out loud, Ricky, what's something these days that you've been saying out loud? What's something that you've been talking about?
Yes, death. I've been talking about death.
Oh, you can, yes.
A lot.
Yeah, let's talk about death.
Like I've been talking about death so much. It's kind of like, it's funny. It's kind of tripping me out a little bit, because I've never really talked about it. And now that I do, I'm realizing like how freeing it is. And I'm realizing, like, as a Gemini, okay, I realize the greatest gift I can give to people is to say things to them that no one else has the balls to say to them. Because there's something magic about words. They unlock something for us. Once it's like permission. Once someone says words that resonate to something deep inside of ourselves that's been silent, it gives that part of ourselves a chance to speak. And there's been so many stigmas and taboos around death that people have all these inner knowings and knowledges about death that are locked up because no one ever talks about it. And so I've seen the gift of just being able to open up the conversation and ask the questions. It allows all of this ancient knowledge about death that's been buried in people to start to come to the surface.
Wow. Okay. So what's a question that you've been asking? Ask. I want to hear.
I'll just ask people, like, what do you think happens after you die?
Well, I wish you didn't. Okay, maybe I shouldn't. The Hindu in me wants to say the souls get reborn. There's a very logical part of me that says nothing happens. You burn. We either cremate you or you get disintegrated. Nothing happens. I've often thought reincarnation is bullshit, and my mom hates when I say that. But I go, this is just human beings needing to know what happens after death. What if nothing happens and we don't fucking know, and that's the answer? That's what I currently think about death. Is that I don't know and I don't care to know.
But see, and this is the stigma, and this is the taboo, this is the training, because like you say that, but it's not true. Because if you think about it, like, you can't have a spiritual conversation unless you're willing to talk about death, because it's true. The body doesn't reincarnate. Once the body is dead, it's dead. But you're only talking about the body. A spiritual conversation is talking about something different. And so the question, so here's the question that I'll ask people. So if I cut off your arm, okay, if I cut off your arm, do you still exist?
Yes.
Are you any less of a person?
No.
If I cut off your other arm, do you still exist?
Yes.
Are you any less of a person?
No.
If I cut off your legs, both of them, do you still exist?
I mean, to an extent, yes. Yes.
Yeah. Are you any less of a person?
No.
See, when I say person, right, we're not talking about the body.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about something else. Right? This is what I mean. Just being able to have the conversation, because we all have these opinions, these judgments, these beliefs, but they're rigid. They don't ever get to move or incorporate new information. Right? Like our ideas, like you quoted Hinduism. Our ideas about death are so antiquated. Right? They don't take into consideration this new information that we have. It's this like refusal to look at it because the training that we've received is that something bad is going to happen. Okay, unless we're perfect, and that's not true. It's not true. So here's the way I think about it. Right? If you look at life, okay, logical, rational conversation. If you look at life, you see everything in life is evolving. Everything is evolving. Okay, and when I look around at mankind. Okay, I'm not convinced that we're the top of the chain. I'm not convinced that we've reached the top of some evolutionary journey. You know what I'm saying?
So what do you think? Wait, ... I'm waiting.
Well, this is a conversation, right? So I say words that go into your head and they move things around, right? And the idea is hopefully that something comes back out of your mouth that integrates some of the information, the new information that I just introduced into your consciousness.
Some of our most mind-blowing conversations, you've said something and I'm like, you're like, just think about it. Just be with it. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do? But it's so good because I need to have an answer, right? So for me to not have an answer, and this is how I want to wrap up, is just like, we've talked about a lot of things. There's no, like, this is a conversation. There's no end to this conversation, just about who we are and getting to know ourselves. But some of the best questions you've asked me, I still don't have an answer to, by the way. I don't have an answer to them. I just sit with it. And it's just allowed me to just not be so attached to the answer. So I've really appreciated how your approach in working with me. It's been such a beautiful blend of logic and emotion and spirit. So thank you so much.
Yeah, because when you have an answer, the energy stops. When you have a question, right? That's why I say it's not a better question. It's a question that's actually a question. And a question always creates more space. Right?
Yes. So, Ricky, what's the best place for people to reach out to you, book a session, contact you, all the good stuff?
So I have a website, rickywilliams.life. And I'm starting to be more active on Instagram at Williams. And every once in a while, I'll throw something on Twitter at Rick DeLaureate. But I think if people want to book time and take this conversation deeper and more personal, then you can book on rickywilliams.life.
I would highly recommend it as someone who has booked a session with you and then consistently have worked with you for a few months. Best decision. I don't know. I still to this day, I'm like, how did I get here? How did I get? It's just so beautiful to me. So I'm grateful. I'm honored. Thank you for spending your time here today with me on the Say It Out Loud podcast.
Oh, thank you for inspiring me to say it out loud. Thank you.
Bye. If you love today's episode, then say it out loud. Subscribe, leave a review, and come say hi over on Instagram at My Name is Vasavi. Until next time, say it out loud.